I bought my grandmother's house at auction to keep it in the family, then found the stack of returned birthday cards I'd sent her that my parents said she never wanted. The cards were in a shoebox under her bed, 37 of them, spanning from age 6 to 23. Each one still sealed. Each one marked return to sender in my mother's handwriting. Not grandma's, my mother's. I sat on the dusty floor of her bedroom, my hands shaking as afternoon light cut through the curtains she'd sewn herself. Every birthday, I'd asked if Grandma liked my card. "Oh, she loved it," Mom would say, smiling that smile I now recognized as practiced. She keeps them all in a special place. That part was true, I suppose, just not the way I'd imagined. The house had sold for $340,000. I'd scraped together every penny, maxed out credit cards, borrowed from friends. My parents didn't bid. "Too many bad memories," they said. "You're being sentimental." When I won, Dad actually laughed. "Hope you know what you're getting into." I'd been sorting through her things for 3 days now. Found photo albums I'd never seen, filled with pictures of me as a baby that someone had clearly given her in secret. Letters she'd written but never mailed. Postage stamps already affixed. A journal that mentioned my name 42 times in the last year alone. She'd been tracking my life through Facebook posts my parents shared, screenshots of my Instagram that someone must have sent her. She'd written, "I wish I could tell her I'm proud of her nursing degree. I wish I could tell her anything at all." The birthday cards were proof of something I'd suspected but couldn't confirm. My parents had been gatekeepers. When I was 12, I'd asked to visit Grandma. "She's not feeling well," Mom said. At 15, I tried calling her directly. "Her phone's disconnected," Dad explained. By 18, I'd stopped trying, believing the story they'd sold me, that Grandma had become bitter and difficult, that she'd pushed everyone away. She died in January. I found out from her neighbor, not my parents. They'd planned to tell me after the funeral. "We didn't want to upset you during finals," Mom said, but I knew better. They'd waited until after she was cremated, after her will was read, after they'd gotten what they wanted from her estate. Except they hadn't gotten the house. Grandma's will stated it should be sold at public auction. Anyone could bid. She probably assumed we'd buy it, Dad said when he saw the listing, but they never intended to. They wanted it sold to strangers, erased from our family. I found her glasses next to the bed, a book marked on page 247. Her reading lamp was still plugged in. The whole house felt frozen, like she'd just stepped out and might return any moment. In her closet, I found 12 wrapped birthday presents with my name on them. Years worth, never sent. That's when I called my parents. "Did you return every card I sent her?" Silence. "Did she ever even see them?" My mother's voice was tight. "She would have filled your head with nonsense." "What nonsense?" "About us. About things that happened years ago." I opened one of the birthday cards from when I was 8. I'd drawn a picture of our family holding hands. I'd written, "I love you, Grandma. Mom says you might come for Thanksgiving." Underneath in crayon, "Please come." "What did you think she'd tell me?" I asked. Dad took over the phone. "This is exactly why we kept you two apart. You're getting emotional over nothing." "Nothing? You stole 17 years from both of us. We protected you," he snapped. That woman was toxic. Always criticizing how we raised you, always interfering. I hung up, sat in the house I'd bankrupted myself to buy, started reading her journal from the beginning, and on page 34, dated 15 years ago, I found an entry that made my blood run cold. "They've threatened to keep her away if I don't sign over the business. I'm calling a lawyer tomorrow." The next entry was 3 months later. "My lawyer died in a car accident. They're saying I'm too old to find another one." Maybe they're right. I pulled out my phone and searched for my grandmother's lawyer. Found his obituary from 15 years ago. Died in a single car collision. No witnesses. Then I noticed something I'd missed before. In the shoebox with the cards was a sealed envelope addressed to me in Grandma's shaking handwriting, dated 2 weeks before she died. My hands trembled as I opened it. The letter was 8 pages long, front and back, written in that careful script that became shakier as it went on, like she was racing against time. "My dearest girl," it started. "If you're reading this, I'm gone. And if you're reading this in my house, then you bought it. I hoped you would. I made sure the auction was public because I knew your parents wouldn't want you to have it. They've taken everything else from me. From us." I had to stop reading, put the letter down, breathe. The next paragraph made me pick it up again. 15 years ago, I owned Bennett and Associates. It was a small consulting firm, nothing glamorous, but it was profitable, very profitable. When your grandfather died, he left it to me with the understanding I'd pass it to your father when I retired. But your father didn't want to wait. He wanted control immediately. He said I was getting too old, making bad decisions. The business was suffering under my leadership. I knew this story. Dad had told me his version, how Grandma had been stubborn and refused to step down, how she'd nearly bankrupted the company with poor investments, how he'd had to fight to save the family legacy. None of that was true, Grandma's letter continued. The business was thriving. I'd just secured our biggest contract. But your father had other plans. He wanted to take the company in a different direction, riskier. I said no, so he recruited your mother, and together they started pressuring me. First it was just arguments. Then it became threats. She described how they'd begun intercepting her mail, how they'd told business associates she was senile, how they'd started showing up at meetings to contradict her decisions, how they'd spread rumors she was losing her memory. When I wouldn't break, they played their final card. You. You were 7 years old. Your mother told me I'd never see you again unless I signed over the business. I laughed at first, thought she was bluffing. Then you stopped coming to visit. Your calls stopped. Your cards stopped arriving. My throat tightened. I hired a lawyer, a good one. He believed me, said we had a case. He was gathering evidence, phone records, witness statements, documents proving the company's financial health. Then he died. Single car accident on a clear day on a straight road. The police said he fell asleep at the wheel, but his wife told me he'd been getting threatening phone calls. She was too scared to tell the police. I reread that paragraph 3 times. I know how this sounds, Grandma wrote. like a paranoid old woman seeing conspiracies. But I found a private investigator willing to look into it. He discovered things I've documented. Everything is in the house. Look for the box marked Christmas Decorations 1987 in the attic. It's not Christmas decoration. My legs felt weak. I was too scared to get another lawyer, too scared of what might happen. So I signed the business over. Your father promised I could still see you. He lied. For 17 years, I waited. Watched you grow up through pictures your aunt would sneak me. She's been my lifeline. Though she's terrified your parents will find out. Check your email. She's been waiting to contact you. The letter ended with this. I'm old now, sick. The doctors say I have maybe 6 months. I've made arrangements. The house goes to auction so your parents can't simply inherit it and sell it. I'm hoping you'll buy it. I'm hoping you'll find this. I'm hoping it's not too late to give you the truth. I loved you every single day. I'm sorry I couldn't fight harder. I'm sorry I chose wrong. But maybe you can choose right. Everything you need is in that box. Make them answer for what they've done. I love you. I'm so proud of you. Don't let them win. Grandma, I sat there until the sun set, read the letter 4 more times. Then I climbed to the attic. The box was exactly where she said it would be. Dusty, heavy, labeled in faded marker. Inside were files, dozens of them, organized by year. And a USB drive taped to the bottom with a note, backup of everything. Hide this somewhere safe. The first file was labeled business records. Inside were copies of financial statements from Bennett & Associates dating back 16 years. The company had been making steady profits. No signs of mismanagement, no bad investments. The numbers were solid. The second file was labeled correspondence, printed emails between my parents, between dad and business associates, between mom and grandma's former friends, all dated from that crucial period 15 years ago. In one email, dad wrote to his business partner, "The old bat won't budge. Time for Plan B." Plan B was apparently destroying her reputation. There were drafted emails to be sent from fake accounts, negative reviews of the business written to look like they came from clients, even a script for what people should say if asked about grandma's mental state. Mom had written in the margins, "Make sure to mention forgetfulness and paranoia. Lay it on thick." The third file was labeled lawyer investigation. Inside were notes from the private investigator. He'd interviewed the dead lawyer's wife. She confirmed the threatening calls, said her husband had mentioned he was close to exposing financial fraud at a local business, said he'd been scared but determined. The PI had also obtained the accident report. It noted unusual brake failures despite a recently serviced vehicle. I felt sick. The fourth file was labeled threats, printouts of text messages between my parents, screenshots of conversations. In one exchange from 14 years ago, Mom texted Dad, "She's trying to see her again. Showed up at the school." Dad replied, "Handle it. Remind her what happens if she doesn't back off." There was a hospital report. Grandma had been admitted for accidental injuries 3 days after that text exchange. Broken wrist, bruised ribs. The attending physician had noted, patient claims she fell downstairs. Injuries inconsistent with stated cause. Possible elder abuse suspected, but patient refuses to elaborate. I had to stop reading, put everything back in the box, go downstairs, breathe. It was 11 p.m. I called my aunt, my dad's sister. She answered on the first ring like she'd been waiting. "You found it," she said. Not a question. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her voice cracked. "I tried. Every time I tried to see you, your parents had an excuse. Every time I called, they said you were busy. I sent you letters. Did you ever get them?" "No." I figured. "I've been checking your social media for years, waiting for you to move out, to be somewhere I could reach you safely. When I saw you bought the house, I knew she'd left something for you. Tell me what happened." All of it. She talked for 2 hours, confirmed everything in Grandma's letter, added details that made it worse. She'd witnessed the abuse, seen Mom push Grandma at a family dinner, heard Dad threatening to have her declared incompetent. She'd tried to intervene once and Dad had threatened to cut her off from the family business too. She had 3 kids. She was scared. "I'm so sorry," she kept saying. "I should have done more. I should have." "Do you still have access to the business records?" Silence. "I'm the accountant," she finally said. "I've been keeping copies of everything for years, just in case. I knew one day the truth would come out. Can you send them to me?" "Yes. But be careful. Your father he's dangerous when cornered. He's destroyed people who got in his way." After we hung up, I couldn't sleep. I lay on Grandma's bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the lawyer who died, the accident that seemed too convenient, the threats my grandmother had endured for years. Morning came, I called in sick to my nursing job, spent the day photographing every document, uploading everything to 3 different cloud storage accounts, mailing copies to myself at 3 different addresses, giving the USB drive to my best friend with instructions to open it if anything happened to me. Then I called a lawyer, not just any lawyer, the one whose billboards I'd seen all over town. "We don't back down." His name was Peter Volkov. He was known for taking on impossible cases against powerful people. His secretary tried to schedule me for next month. I said I'd pay double for an emergency consultation. She put me through. "You have 1 hour," he said. "Make it count." I made it count. When I finished showing him everything, he leaned back in his chair. "This is either the biggest family fraud case I've ever seen, or you're delusional. Given the documentation, I'm going with fraud. What can we do? Depends on what you want. Criminal charges, civil suit, public exposure, all of the above. I want my grandmother's business back. I want them to answer for what they did. And I want everyone to know the truth." He smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "I can work with that." The legal process was slow. Gathering more evidence, deposing witnesses, building the case. My aunt provided internal business documents showing how Dad had cooked the books after taking over, how he'd siphoned profits into personal accounts, how he'd used company funds for luxury purchases disguised as business expenses. 3 months after my first meeting with Peter, we filed a civil suit. Fraud, elder abuse, conversion of business assets. We went after everything. My parents' response was immediate. Dad called me 47 times in one day. Mom showed up at my work, crying, begging me to drop it. "You're destroying this family," she said. Over nothing. Over lies from a senile old woman? She wasn't senile. You just wanted everyone to think she was. You don't understand the pressure we were under. The business was making record profits. I've seen the real numbers. Stop lying. She tried a different approach. What about your future? Your inheritance? If you do this, you get nothing. I don't want your money. It was never yours to begin with. Security escorted her out. The depositions were brutal. Dad's lawyers were aggressive, attacking every document, every witness. They tried to claim Grandma had early dementia. We produced medical records showing she'd been sharp until the very end. They tried to claim the business transfer was voluntary. We produced emails proving the coercion. The turning point came when my aunt testified. She'd been granted immunity in exchange for cooperation. She walked the jury through 15 years of fraud, showed them the 2 sets of books Dad had kept, one for the IRS, one for himself, explained how he'd systematically destroyed Grandma's reputation to cover his tracks. "Why didn't you come forward sooner?" the prosecutor asked. "Because I was afraid. My brother threatened to hurt my family. He threatened to do to me what he'd done to my mother. I have 3 children. I couldn't risk it." What changed? My niece bought her grandmother's house. She found the truth, and I realized that staying silent was the same as helping him. The trial lasted 6 weeks. The jury deliberated for 3 days. Guilty on all counts. The judge's ruling was comprehensive. Dad had to return the business to Grandma's estate, which meant me as her sole heir. He had to pay restitution for 15 years of stolen profits. He and Mom both faced criminal charges for elder abuse and fraud. They each got 5 years, though with good behavior they'd likely serve 3. The business itself was worth $3.2 million now. Dad had grown it ironically, using Grandma's foundation and contacts. But he'd done it illegally, and none of it was rightfully his. I sold it, didn't want anything to do with it, took the money and paid off my debts from buying the house, put the rest in trust for my future kids. Grandma's grandchildren she never got to meet. My parents were released after serving 32 months. I was at work when I got the notification. They tried calling me. I'd changed my number. They tried showing up at my house. The house Grandma had left me. I had a restraining order filed within 24 hours. But that's not the end of the story. 6 months after their release, I got a letter from Mom, written from a motel 3 states away. "I know you won't read this," it started. "I know you hate us. I know we destroyed everything, but I need you to understand something. It wasn't supposed to go this far." She described how it started, how Dad had been so sure he could run the business better, how he'd convinced her they were helping, not hurting, how the first lie led to the second, and the second to the third, until they were so deep they couldn't see a way out. "When we started keeping you from your grandmother, I told myself it was temporary, just until she calmed down, just until she saw things our way. But months turned into years, and your father kept saying we couldn't back down now, couldn't admit what we'd done. So we kept going, kept lying, kept pretending." She wrote about the guilt, how she'd wake up sometimes and feel sick about what they'd done to Grandma, how she'd almost told me the truth a dozen times, how she'd stop herself because she was afraid of losing everything. "I don't expect forgiveness," she wrote. "I don't deserve it, but I need you to know that I loved my mother. I know that sounds impossible after what we did, but it's true. I loved her, and I destroyed her anyway. That's what makes it unforgivable." The letter ended with this: "I see your grandmother in my dreams. She never says anything, just looks at me with this expression of profound disappointment. I wake up wishing I could go back, change everything, choose differently, but I can't. So I'm writing to tell you that you did the right thing. You fought for someone who couldn't fight for herself anymore. You made them listen. You made me answer for what I did. Thank you for that. Even if you never speak to me again, thank you." I didn't respond. Put the letter in a drawer with all the others I'd never answered. A year later, I was cleaning out the last boxes from Grandma's attic when I found one more thing, a small envelope tucked inside an old cookbook, addressed to me, but different from the first letter. This one was dated just days after I was born. "My darling girl," it read, "you're 3 days old. Your parents are arguing downstairs about where you'll sleep. Your mother wants you in their room. Your father thinks you need your own space. They're figuring it out. They'll be good parents, I think. They love you so much already. I'm holding you while they argue, and you're making these little sounds in your sleep, little squeaks and sighs. Your fingers are wrapped around my thumb. I can't believe how small you are, how perfect. I'm going to be the best grandmother I can be. I'm going to tell you about your grandfather, about our family, about all the important things. I'm going to bake you cookies and let you stay up late and spoil you the way grandmothers are supposed to. I'm going to love you so much. I'm looking forward to every moment. All my love, Grandma." I sat on the attic floor and cried, for what she'd planned, for what we'd lost, for all those years of cookies never baked and stories never told, but also for what we'd had, brief as it was. Those first 7 years before everything fell apart. I remembered some of it now. Her teaching me to sew, her garden where we'd planted tomatoes, the way she'd hum while cooking, the lavender smell of her house. They'd stolen the rest, but they hadn't stolen all of it. I framed both letters, hung them in the house that used to be hers, and now was mine. In the living room where light came through those curtains she'd sewn. That's where I was standing when my aunt called with news. "Your father had a stroke," she said. "He's in the hospital. It's bad." "Okay. Your mother asked if you'd come. She says she knows she doesn't deserve it, but she's asking anyway." I thought about it. About Grandma in that hospital bed with a broken wrist and bruised ribs, saying she fell downstairs. About her sitting in this house for years, cut off from everyone, watching her granddaughter grow up through stolen photos. About the lawyer who died under suspicious circumstances. "No," I said. "She thought you'd say that. She wanted me to tell you she understands." Dad survived the stroke but was left partially paralyzed, had to move into a nursing home. Mom got a small apartment and a job at a grocery store. Their old friends had all disappeared when the trial details went public. Their social status, gone. Their reputation, destroyed. Everything they'd sacrificed their morals for, everything they'd destroyed Grandma to get, vanished anyway. Meanwhile, I kept working as a nurse, kept living in Grandma's house. Dated someone I met at a hospital fundraiser. Got married in the backyard where Grandma's tomatoes used to grow. Had a daughter 2 years later. We named her after my grandmother. On her first birthday, I took her to visit Grandma's grave for the first time. It was a simple stone, just her name and dates. I'd wanted to put something more but couldn't find words that captured everything. "Hi, Grandma," I said, sitting on the grass with my daughter in my lap. "This is little Beatrice. I know you can't meet her, but I thought I'd bring her by, tell you about her. She has your eyes, I think. Same color. And she's stubborn like you. Won't sleep unless she's ready. Won't eat unless it's on her terms." My daughter babbled and grabbed at the grass. "I found your letters," I continued. "All of them. I know what happened now. I know what they did. And I made them answer for it. It took time, but they answered." The wind picked up, rustling through the trees overhead. "I wish you could have met her. I wish you could have taught her to sew like you taught me. I wish we'd had more time, but I'm trying to give her what you wanted to give me. Love, stories, a grandmother's wisdom. I'm telling her about you, making sure she knows where she came from, making sure she knows she had a great grandmother who fought for what was right, even when it cost her everything." My daughter laughed at something, reaching for my face. "Thank you for the house," I said. "Thank you for not giving up, even when they made you feel alone. Thank you for documenting everything, for leaving me the truth. I'll make sure she knows. I'll make sure your story isn't forgotten." We sat there for a while, until my daughter got fussy and hungry. As we walked back to the car, I looked back at the grave one more time. In my purse was a letter I'd brought. One I'd written to Grandma, but never sent. Never could send. In it, I told her about the trial, about the victory, about the house, about my daughter, about how I'd named the tomatoes in the garden after her, about how every time I used her measuring cups or wore one of her scarves, I felt her with me. I'd planned to leave it at the grave, but at the last moment I kept it. Decided instead to add it to the box of letters in the attic, the record of everything that had happened, everything that had been lost and found. One day, when my daughter was old enough, I'd show her everything. The returned birthday cards, the journal entries, the letters, the legal documents, all of it. I'd tell her about the great-grandmother she never met, about the house that almost got away, about the truth that had been buried for years, about how one person's courage to document the truth, to leave a record, to not let the lies stand unchallenged, had changed everything. And I'd tell her what Grandma's last letter had said. Don't let them win. They didn't win. Years passed. The nursing home called when Dad died. Heart attack. Quick. I didn't go to the funeral. Sent flowers with a card that said simply, "May you find peace." Whether that was a genuine wish or a subtle accusation, I let them decide. Mom lasted 3 more years. Cancer. She'd started smoking again after getting out of prison. I got updates through my aunt but maintained my distance. The day before Mom died, the nursing home called. She was asking for me. Had something she needed to say. I thought about it for 6 hours. Almost didn't go. But something, curiosity maybe, or a desire for closure, made me drive there. She looked small in that hospital bed. Nothing like the polished, commanding woman who'd once controlled every aspect of our family life. Her hair was thin and gray. Her hands shook. "You came," she said when I walked in. "I'm here, I'm listening. That's all." She nodded. Seemed to understand that was the best she'd get. "I've been thinking about what I'd say if I got this chance," she started. "Rehearsed it 1,000 times. But now that you're here, it all feels inadequate." I pulled up a chair, but didn't sit close. Maintained distance. "I wanted to tell you about the first time I held you," she said. "You were 2 hours old. The nurse put you in my arms and I thought, I will do anything to protect this child. Anything to give her a good life. And I meant it." She paused, struggling with the oxygen tubes. "Somewhere along the way, I confused protecting you with protecting our status, our wealth, our image. I convinced myself that what was good for us was good for you, that you needed parents who were successful, powerful, respected, and that meant doing whatever it took to secure that position, even if it meant destroying Grandma. Even that, I justified it by saying she was old-fashioned, standing in the way of progress. I told myself we were building a legacy for you, a business you could inherit, a name you could be proud of." She coughed, and I handed her water without thinking. "Old nursing instincts. Thank you," she said. "The irony is, I destroyed the very thing I was trying to protect. You don't carry our name now. You changed it to hers. Bennett. You took your grandmother's maiden name. I did. And the business I stole for you, you sold. The legacy I built through lies and cruelty, you wanted nothing to do with. No, I didn't. I wasted 17 years. 17 years you could have had with her. 17 years she could have been your grandmother. I stole that from both of you, and for what? For money I didn't need? For a business that got taken away anyway? For power that meant nothing?" She was crying now. Not dramatic sobs, just tears sliding down her face. "I can't undo it," she said. "I can't give you back those years. I can't bring her back. I can't even ask for forgiveness because I know I don't deserve it. But I needed to tell you that I know. I know what I destroyed. I know what I cost you. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I sat there, watching her cry, feeling nothing, then feeling everything, then nothing again. "I read your letter," I finally said. "The one you sent from the motel." She looked surprised. "I didn't know if you got it. I got it. I read it. And you were right. You don't deserve forgiveness. What you did was unforgivable." She nodded, accepting it. "But," I continued, "I'm not holding on to this anymore. Not for you. For me. I spent years being angry, years wanting you to suffer. And you did suffer. You lost everything. Your reputation, your freedom, your marriage, really? Dad never forgave you for testifying. Your relationship with me, everything." I stood up. "So here's what I'll give you. Not forgiveness, but release. I'm letting go of the anger. Not because you deserve it, but because I'm tired of carrying it. I have a daughter now, a husband, a life that I love, and I refuse to let what you did poison that. That's more than I deserve, she whispered. It is, but it's not really about you. It's about me choosing to move forward. I walked to the door, then stopped. For what it's worth, I think Grandma would have forgiven you eventually. She was better than both of us that way. She wrote in her journal about still loving you, even after everything. About hoping one day you'd find your way back to the person you used to be. Mom's face crumpled. I don't think that person exists anymore. Maybe not. But you have tonight to think about it. To decide who you want to be in your last hours. Someone who's genuinely sorry, or someone who's just sorry they got caught. I left her there, drove home to my family, kissed my daughter goodnight, crawled into bed next to my husband. How'd it go? He asked. It went. You okay? I will be. Mom died the next morning, peacefully, they said. I arranged a small funeral, showed up, didn't cry, shook hands with a few people who came, left. My aunt approached me afterward. That was kind of you, coming to the funeral. She was still my mother. Your grandmother would be proud of how you handled all of this, how you fought for the truth without losing yourself in the process. I hope so. We stood there for a moment, watching the cemetery workers begin filling in the grave. I have something for you, my aunt said. Your grandmother gave it to me years ago, made me promise to keep it safe until the right time. I think that time is now. She handed me a small box. Inside was a ring, simple gold band with a small emerald. It was her mother's, my aunt explained. She wore it every day. She wanted you to have it. Wanted it passed down through the women in our family. I slipped it on. Perfect fit. There's a note too, my aunt said. I unfolded it. Grandma's handwriting, shaky but clear. To my granddaughter, may you wear this and remember that strength runs in your blood. That courage is your inheritance. That love is the only legacy that matters. You are everything I hoped you'd be. Love, Grandma. Standing there in the cemetery between two graves, my grandmother's and my mother's, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding maybe, of how people can love and still hurt, can mean well and still destroy, can want the best for you and still make the worst choices. I thought about Grandma writing that note, knowing she'd be gone before I read it, knowing she was leaving me not just truth and documentation and evidence, but also grace. A reminder that even in the midst of seeking justice, I shouldn't lose sight of love. I thought about Mom in that hospital bed, crying over wasted years and irreversible choices, dying with regret, but at least with some understanding of what she'd done. And I thought about my daughter, home with her father, growing up in the house her great-grandmother had saved for her, learning to make cookies in the same kitchen, playing in the same yard, creating new memories in a space that held so much pain and love intertwined. Thank you, I told my aunt, for keeping this safe, for testifying, for being brave when it mattered. Thank you for being braver, she replied, for doing what I couldn't, for fighting for her. We hugged, then went our separate ways. That evening, I added the ring to the collection in my bedroom. Grandma's letters, her journal, the birthday cards, the documentation of everything that had happened. One day, it would all go to my daughter. The whole truth, the painful parts and the beautiful parts, the evidence of cruelty and the evidence of love, because that was the real lesson in all of this. Not that people are all good or all bad, but that they're complicated, that they make choices, and those choices have consequences. And sometimes those consequences echo through generations. My parents chose power over family, chose wealth over integrity, chose comfort over truth, and they paid for it with everything that mattered. Grandma chose truth even when it was dangerous, chose documentation even when she was afraid, chose to leave a record even when she didn't know if anyone would find it. And because of that, justice happened. The truth came out. The lies were exposed. I chose to honor her by finishing what she started, by taking the evidence she'd gathered and making it matter, by refusing to let her sacrifice be forgotten, by naming my daughter after her and teaching her the values Grandma had embodied: courage, integrity, persistence. 3 years after Mom's funeral, I got a letter from Dad's nursing home. He was declining rapidly, asking for me. This time I didn't go, didn't feel the need. Whatever he had to say, whatever deathbed confessions or apologies he'd prepared, I didn't need to hear them. I'd moved past needing anything from him. When he died 2 months later, I didn't go to that funeral either. Sent flowers. Same card. May you find peace, my aunt called after. He left you something in his will. I don't want it. Just listen. He left you a letter. That's all. No money, no property, just a letter. I have it if you ever want it. I thought about it for weeks. Finally told her to mail it. It arrived on a Tuesday. I left it unopened on my desk for 3 days. Finally opened it on Friday evening after my daughter was asleep. I don't know if you'll read this. It started. Seemed to be the theme with my parents' final letters. I don't know if you should, but your aunt said she'd give it to you, so I'm writing it. He wrote about the business, how he'd convinced himself he could run it better, how every successful quarter had justified his methods, how he'd told himself that the ends justified the means. I was wrong, he wrote, about all of it. The business did well, yes, but I built it on lies and cruelty, and in the end, none of it mattered. I lost everything that actually had value. My mother, my daughter, my integrity, my freedom, everything. He described his years in prison, how he'd had time to think, to really think, without distractions or justifications, how he'd replayed every choice, every moment, every decision. I kept asking myself where it started, he wrote. When did I become the kind of man who would destroy his own mother to get ahead? And I realized it didn't start with one big decision. It started with small compromises, small justifications, small lies. Each one made the next one easier, until I'd gone so far I couldn't see the way back. He wrote about watching the trial coverage from prison, seeing what I'd done, how I'd fought for Grandma. I was angry at first, he admitted, felt betrayed, told myself you were ungrateful, disloyal. But over time, that anger faded, and I realized something. You did what I should have done. You chose integrity over comfort, truth over convenience. You honored your grandmother in a way I never did, and he'd crossed out several words here, finally settled on, I'm devastated that I taught you nothing, that you had to learn those values from her, despite me, not because of me. The letter ended simply, I don't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I see now what I couldn't see then, that I understand what I destroyed, and that my only real legacy is a daughter who refused to become like me. That's something, at least. More than I earned. More than I deserved. Be well. Be better than us. Dad. I read it once. Put it in the box with everything else. Tried to feel something. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. It was hard to tell anymore. What I did feel was tired. Tired of the whole saga. Tired of my parents' belated realizations. Tired of their final acts of self-awareness coming too late to matter. But I also felt grateful. Grateful for Grandma's foresight, for her documentation, for the way she'd loved me enough to leave me the truth, even knowing how much it would hurt. That night, I went up to my daughter's room. She was 4 now. Same age Grandma and I had been in one of those photos I'd found. She was sleeping peacefully, clutching the stuffed rabbit my aunt had given her. I adjusted her blanket and kissed her forehead. You'll never wonder if I love you, I whispered. You'll never have to fight to see me. You'll never have to dig through attics to find the truth. I promise you that. She stirred slightly, smiled in her sleep. And I'll tell you about your great-grandmother. About how she fought when fighting was hard, how she documented the truth when truth was dangerous, how she loved you before you were born, how she made all of this possible. I left her door cracked open, went downstairs where my husband was reading. Everything okay? He asked. Yeah, everything's okay. And for the first time in years, I meant it. The house was mine. The truth was known. My daughter was loved and safe. The fight was over. Grandma had written in one of her letters, don't let them win. They didn't win. But more than that, we won. Me and Grandma. Justice happened. Truth prevailed. Love endured. Years from now, when my daughter is old enough, I'll take her up to the attic, show her the box marked Christmas decorations 1987, tell her what's really inside, walk her through the whole story, the good parts and the terrible parts, the courage and the cruelty, the love and the loss. And I'll make sure she understands that this is her inheritance. Not money or property or social status, but truth, integrity, courage, the willingness to fight for what's right even when it costs you everything. That's what Grandma left me. That's what I'll leave her. And that, finally,